Hey everyone, this week we are back on Project Zero. I'm going to start on what will eventually be the structural reconstruction, bottom side of the car. To start, I have to pull the remaining of the front side of the rear frame rail off and then cut out the rear part of the frame rail as well that is attached to the rear bumper bracket. Get that apart, do some cleanup under the bottom there, and then continue on. I can then get to test fitting the frame rail and any other pieces on the bottom side, doing any other custom fabrication that I need to do. We've got that upper torque box, that'll be a little bit later. I want to get the frame rail in and get the floor pan done as well, and then get the bottom side cleaned up, primed. We're going to do more of the aerospace epoxy primer and then some white paint, whole bottom side of the car, same as the inside. And I'm going to paint that frame rail before it gets installed as well, and then I will spot weld on the frame rail, then paint the bottom side or the outside of that, and then I can move on to the upper torque box and any other pieces there. It's a lot of work. It's very time consuming. Doesn't seem like a whole lot of progress while you're working through it. So on this week we've got the disassembly in preparation to getting to the fabrication part. Hope you guys enjoy. Alright, so today what we've got going on is we are going to start drilling out the spot welds that are holding the remaining sections of frame rail out of this car. There's some up along here or through this section of the floor, and then some at the very back that are holding the bumper bracket on. And I need to drill them out, drill out the torque box, which is actually over top of that frame rail, and then clean everything up and prep to actually install the new frame rail. One of the things that I hadn't really thought of before is actually where that rear bumper bracket attaches to the car. It's actually on the last 6 inches or so of the frame rail. So I'm going to have to be creative when I get the car flipped up to be able to actually get that piece of frame rail out and have the car still on its side to allow us to be able to weld the new piece on. I'll figure that out when we get there, but in the meantime, what I'm going to do, you can see all these spot welds. There's one here, there's one here, and they kind of carry up and over. And I'm going to mark them all out, and then I know where to drill from the top side. As you can see further up, it's already been drilled out, so I might as well carry on with that theme. And then when we place the frame rail on the bottom side, I can actually just spot weld all from the top. It's smooth, it's inside the car. Less chance for corrosion, although we will be taking steps to finalize everything. I'll end up blending some more paint in here on all the spots that have welds. That way the bottom side of the frame rail won't actually have any exposed welds, so it'll look a lot tidier from the underside of the car as well. So let's get into it. Some of these spot welds aren't actually the easiest thing to see. Might be easier if it was completely uncoated, but even with the factory primer that was on here before, it would have covered that up. We had the sound deadening all through here as well. So I've marked as much as I can see. The bottom side, I may actually go under and do a small pilot hole through the spot welds on any items that we're not too worried about keeping, and then I actually have an alignment hole to start drilling the spot weld out from the top. So just another option. We'll get a light over this, see as much as we can, and then go to that option. So here we have our spot weld cutter kit, and this actually comes with a spring-loaded pin on the end. If you start a bit of a pilot hole, then that'll actually keep things lined up. We actually have a cutter here that has 4 different blades. There are some replacement cutters, and this basically goes around the outside of the spot weld and then allows you to cut through that upper level of sheet metal without disturbing what's underneath. Also, this allows you to have a nice round opening when you put your new material underneath to actually do a fresh spot weld. So here I have 2 drills. One has my 3/16 pilot hole bit, and here I have the one with the spot weld cutter. So I'm going to go into each of these spots and just place a bit of a pilot hole to keep the spot cutter from actually walking back and forth. There is actually a couple other styles of spot weld cutters that instead of having a spring-loaded pin on the end, they actually have a drill bit in the end. Could be very useful as well, but we don't have that, so I'm going to work with what I have, and we're going to get into this. We've got some of them drilled out now. As you've seen a couple times, the bit has actually slipped off the pilot hole. There is one disadvantage with this style that doesn't actually have a drill bit. It's going to make a pilot hole right through the sheet metal. But the one major advantage of this style is if you're careful, you can just go through this top layer. So if you've actually got something underneath that you need to reuse, like our torque box down in here, you can cut out that spot weld from the top and leave the bottom in perfect condition still. So there's pluses and minuses to each one. I guess different applications for different tools. This one seems to be working okay, but every once in a while you can see it just kind of slips out. Not a big deal at the end of the day because we're going to be touching up all the paintwork in here anyways, but just I guess one of my observations of one of the slight downfalls of this style of tool. Alright, you can see here we've got these spot welds drilled out from the top side, the ones that we had marked. And now it's time to look at the bottom side, see what other ones we can see, and then get on with the next plan. Alright, so we've gone through and marked a couple spots. I've got some spot welds marked out along the bottom here. Some of this actually goes over top of the frame rail section. We need to pull this torque box off. So I can drill out some of these from the inside, but these along here can't be drilled out from the inside. These along here, we may be able to find them on the inside, maybe put a small pilot hole. And then this we actually need to drill out from the outside because it goes over top of here. We need to remove this frame rail section from underneath, and I need to be able to weld that back onto the frame rail. So I can at least drill this portion out, get down to the frame rail, and then see the spot weld from the inside, drill it out, and then we can get this section off. And well, as you can see, some of it's actually pretty loose. So those inside spot welds have come loose. I need to drill along here a couple more, and then just get a screwdriver in there, and you can kind of work it back and forth and see if it's separated. You saw me kind of drilling a couple times on some of the ones on the top side. You drill so far it feels like you've gotten through, then when you go to move it, it's still attached. So you go through, cut a bit more, and then you can actually push on it with a screwdriver or pry on it and then see if it's got some movement there to be able to tell. So I'm going to try and mark out some of these spots along here and see if I can't get alignment marks for the top side. Cheap drill bits. They don't seem to last long. There you go. Got a piece off nice and clean there. That's actually a perfect example you can see of how that gives you a nice spot to actually put a new spot weld in. removed. All right, so we have this spot here where it's actually been cut through the floor and through the torque box on a vertical and horizontal cut. So since I'm going to be actually separating this from the frame rail, I'm going to want to keep this squared and in the same position. So I'm actually just going to lay a tack in here for now, and then we'll actually get the sandblaster and clean up the little bit of surface rust here or grind it down. That will just make sure it goes back in its proper spot. Alright, so you can see in there, just laid a nice little tack, keep things rigid. Doesn't need to be anything more than that for now, because we're actually going to want to clean everything up in there first, and then go over it later and weld it solid all across here. I may actually put a piece of plate in there to tie the two together. We'll get to that at a later point. So after a considerable amount of time spent trying to figure out how to get these spot welds under here and along here out, I did try a carbide bit on a die grinder up in the one spot weld here. It really just wasn't working. An angle drill won't get the spot weld cutter in there. So I looked at a couple different things and I realized that this is frame rail. This is not. This torque box could possibly stay in the car and slip the frame rail under it, because that is how it is assembled. I would have done it completely the opposite in the factory, but I might be able to get away. There's some spot welds under here I can drill out and then slip the frame rail underneath. That is the approach at the moment. That may change because I don't know exactly how I'd redo these spot welds. But I could potentially drill all the way through these multiple layers here. There's about 3, and then actually get inside with the welder and be able to spot weld down from the inside. We'll see. Maybe. Not sure, but it's worth the attempt, and at least I can get this whole section here off the car without pulling the torque box. Alright, there we have it. One complete removed frame. At least at the front. Got a little bit in the back left. So this is... well, it's off. It was here. Sorry, it was here. Now it's completely removed. There's a little bit of surface rust in here, in between where the 2 layers were. So we'll try and get that cleaned up with a spot blaster and then see what the options are as far as actually slipping the new rail in here without having to remove this whole torque box. Because all these spot welds up here, not going to be nice. You can't get at them with the tool. I tried a carbide bit, one of these, up on an angle for a spot weld, and I probably had 10 minutes to get, well, that's maybe halfway through one, and there's probably 10 or more that have to be brought out all along this upper edge. So this is not an effective tool for that. Good theory, just not quick enough process. So if I can avoid having to pull all that upper torque box, or sorry, lower torque box out and slip the frame rail under, I'll straighten this floor pan out after we get it cleaned up, and then I can actually just spot weld through everything from the top side and the exposed areas we have from the bottom side as well. So we'll see if that approach works. In the meantime, I have to get the spot blaster, and I also have to drill out the rest of the rear portion of the frame rail, which my makeshift rotisserie is attached to. So I'm going to have to find a different way to secure the car on its side. Luckily I have this steel beam above me. Hopefully I can use it to my advantage and be able to disconnect the one section of the rear bumper bracket to be able to get that frame rail out, because it is actually attached to that bumper bracket. And then we have this upper torque box. It all needs to be pulled out as well for the Wild Rides upper torque box kit to go in, because we're missing this whole section. And it's unfortunate because all this side is still in great shape. Everything's even nice and straight. It didn't even get tweaked like some of the other items on the car from being moved around for its whole life. But we're going to have to drill out all these spot welds from the top side and then get the Wild Rides plate in there and get it all fit up. Then remove it, paint the bottom of the car, reinstall the Wild Rides plate, and I'm going to paint the inside of the frame rail before it goes on as well. So, some progress, but a lot more to go. At this point, I decided to proceed and make myself a makeshift indoor sandblasting booth, try and mitigate some of the transfer of all the dust that would develop in the shop from actually doing the sandblasting. It helped contain some of it, but a lot of it still went absolutely everywhere. I had to blow the entire inside of the shop out after. As you can see here with the pallet underneath the car on the original sandblasting, the cross slats there didn't allow us to get access to everything, so on closer inspection there was a lot of spots on the bottom of the car that I still wanted to have cleaned up even better than they had originally gotten. When we did the original sandblasting, there wasn't really anything else we had to set it up on to be able to blast the bottom. Didn't want to put it on the forklift and have all the contamination from that as well. So just had to go about it a second time and get it done. It's all cleaned up now, and then moved on to removing the rear section of the rear frame rail. Hey everyone, got a Tuesday evening here. You'll notice some changes. Yeah, we don't have the rotisserie on the back anymore. It's over there on the floor. Trying to get this section of frame rail out, the last back section there. Been drilling spot welds. I have a ratchet strap holding the car up to keep it off the rotisserie. I did put a safety in there, floor jack on the bottom, just to take a bit of pressure off the straps. Had to remove the blue strap there just to be able to get spot weld cutter and such in there. And we have bumper bracket down there. So I have been drilling out these spot welds here on the back. It turns out these ones, yeah, they're not actually needed, because they go on this little tab in here, and then we have our frame rail here. So had to drill through both layers to be able to get to the bumper bracket, or sorry, the frame rail. And I'm not gonna try and get this thing out. So here goes nothing. There we go. We are out. There's one more step done on the project. So now I have to clean up behind there. I'm sure. Yeah, we've got some residue from actually the original sandblasting. A little bit of rust by the spot welds there. And then I will get it primed, painted all in the bottom section there where the frame rail is going. As you can see, I did some sandblasting last night too. Not a lot of fun. Cleaned up some spots there that had a little bit of surface rust on them or weren't able to get at the first time when it was on the skid being blasted. So just non-stop. It's Tuesday, but it feels like I've been working for 5 days straight. So that is all for now.